Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game SO. Today we're going to continue the series on the MiSTer FPGA DE10 Nano project, and today we're going to be talking about what Taki Udon and his new company, R2, are going to be working on in the future, because he's been teasing a few things on Twitter outside of the traditional MiSTer Pi or MiSTer FPGA triple stack, and we're definitely going to be wanting to take a look at that, because so far, the MiSTer Pi triple stack has been every bit as good as a traditional MiSTer FPGA built with a Terasic board, and everyone's really excited to see what Taki Udon does next, because as much fun as a triple stack is, I know a lot of you are more interested in the console designs, so that's what we're going to be taking a look at today. And if you haven't seen already, I did a full 3-part review of the MiSTer Pi. If you're thinking about picking one up outside of a console, you definitely should take a look at those, because this thing has been 100% good to go. I've been using it for the channel and playing it in my spare time, and it's been great. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. If you feel so inclined to want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But obviously Taki Udon and his company started with the MiSTer triple stack, and that's probably because that clone Terasic DE10 board is going to be at the heart of pretty much everything else that is made. And you'll see here that Taki Udon's talking about the PlayStation anniversary hardware versus the mainstream console for MiSTer FPGA codename 1. And if you don't know already, definitely referring to PlayStation 1 here. If we take a look at the mock-up, the design language of the original PlayStation is all over this thing. You have 2 memory card slots as well as 2 PlayStation 1 controller ports, and you have a USB port in the middle as well, and that's definitely going to be important because obviously getting original controllers in is going to be done via the SNAC protocol, so I would highly assume that middle USB port there is going to be for controlling the menus, because you can't navigate all of the actual UI of MiSTer FPGA when you're using SNAC. It's more for when you are in-game, so it makes sense that there is a USB port off the front. I'm sure you can do a lot of different things with that, but my guess would be that is for controls of the actual menu. And again, to get these controls in, it probably is using a SNAC adapter for PlayStation 1 inside of the case, because that's how we pretty much get all controllers into MiSTer FPGA that are original controllers not hooked up via USB. Sure, you could do something like MiSTer Add-on's Reflex Adapt inside as well, but my guess would very strongly be that it's going to be a SNAC adapter going into a serial connection into the user port of the DE10 Nano in and of itself, or the IO board. But we'll have to wait and see exactly whether or not it is just the clone DE10 inside of the case, or if they've done a new board specifically for these console designs. But again, this looks really good. I absolutely love the PlayStation 1 design language, and I like that it is a little bit more curved at the bottom than the squared off original PS1 is as well. But this is getting a look into what these mainstream consoles are going to be. Is it just going to be PlayStation 1? Is there going to be one for Super Nintendo, for Sega Genesis? We don't know yet, we're just getting a tease. And Taki Udon even joked around about, now you know why the company's logo is the color it is. Obviously those are PlayStation 1 colors. And I didn't really notice that when I actually got the box in, but it makes total sense now. If you take a look at that R2 logo, you can see the PlayStation design language all over it, as well as obviously the Sega Master System on the rest of the boxes. That's definitely a fun time just to kind of follow around with, and it definitely does have the same design language as the 30th anniversary PlayStation, which sadly is probably going to be the most scalped thing of 2024 when it actually comes out. Now, as far as compatibility, somebody asked whether or not PlayStation memory cards are going to work with it, and Taki Udon said yes, and that is because it probably is using that SNAC connection, and you can pretty much use any original peripheral so long as the code is within the MiSTer FPGA core in and of itself. You can do stuff like this over on the Nintendo 64 side as well with FPGA Zoom Space's Nintendo 64 core. And people are talking about that it probably won't have a disk drive, and that would honestly be my guess as well. This is probably still going to be using files off the micro SD card into MiSTer FPGA, because this isn't just intended to run PlayStation 1, it just looks like a PlayStation 1, but it will run other cores per Taki. And that is most likely down to the fact that I/O availability on MiSTer FPGA just really doesn't allow to have something like a CD-ROM drive ingesting data into it. It's not how the project works. It probably isn't going to run original media unless Taki Udon and his engineering team have figured out something special, and we can't really discount that. And if you think about it this way, we have so many GPIO pins on MiSTer FPGA, and when you actually populate everything you need, you really aren't left over with much whatsoever. You basically have your analog video hat there, you put your RAM in, you really don't have much left on the I/O in and of itself. So that's one of the main reasons why you don't really get physical media loading on MiSTer FPGA. Secondarily, it just isn't something that really anyone has been interested in doing at this point in time. Sure, it would be fun to see, but I'm not anticipating anticipating that, so I don't want you to anticipate it either. If for some strange reason it actually happens, just be pleasantly surprised. And you'll see here, obviously on a single RAM build, one of those GPIO headers is 100% occupied with that RAM, and the other GPIO header basically has that IO board in the top, especially if you want to use analog or dual RAM, although dual RAM at this point in time not super essential whatsoever. So I can't say that this thing isn't going to be spinning up disks, but the likelihood is that it is just going to be using the SD card like every other MiSTer FPGA build ever made, but that's totally fine. Now back onto the MiSTer Pi triple stack here, there are going to be some cases apparently available in future batches. You'll see here there's a frosted one, and really you should get your MiSTer Pi into some sort of case. You don't want to be raw dogging it as a triple stack. I do it for the camera. I'm used to handling electronics, but it's not something I'm going to recommend to you guys, and I will have a video shortly as well. I've already shown it to you from Retro Frog and Todd Gill, where he did his own 3D printed MiSTer Pi cases, and I'll put a MiSTer Pi directly in one. It's a great product, definitely can't recommend it enough. But the point being is that if you are a new owner of a MiSTer Pi triple stack, definitely find some sort of case here, there, or anywhere, because you don't want to leave this thing just sitting around as bare PCBs, take it from me. But it is fun to see what's going on here with the mainstream consoles, because the MiSTer Pi triple stack isn't just the only thing coming. There's so many other SKUs, and honestly we see stuff like this in the MiSTer FPGA ecosystem already with the Marsupial M3 MiSTer FPGA. There's different case designs, and one of them definitely is aping the design language of a PlayStation 1, pun very much intended for Ape Escape, my favorite game on this original console that Sony made, but my real favorite game would definitely be Symphony of the Night. And leave me a comment down below and tell me what your favorite PS1 game is. I would be curious. But this is always fun, and I know a lot of people out there want the quote-unquote console experience for MiSTer FPGA, where you can just plug in controllers, treat it like any other console you can put next to your television, and just enjoy yourself from there. Not everyone wants a triple stack or to have that kind of project board sitting around their television, and I get that. So it will be fun to see more photographs and renders of this, and obviously when it's done and available, I will review it for everyone, showing you guys the ins and outs of it and talking about exactly what it is doing. But Taki Udon stated it'll use real memory cards, it'll be able to play more than just a PlayStation 1 core, so it seems just like a really fun consoleized MiSTer with a lot of the snack adapters built in. And honestly, if you did a run of pretty much every console case out there, I would love to see that. There's so many different fun cases that could house different fun equipment. Obviously, as much as I love MiSTer FPGA, I'm also an original console collector, and you're just seeing like maybe 10 to 15% of the overall console hardware I have stashed away in this house. And honestly, there's still information we don't know, like the flagship. We do know some more details, but we don't really have a lot of renders, and that is one that people are very curious about. And obviously, the MiSTer FPGA handheld is still in the pipeline as well, and for me personally, that is the one I want to see more than anything else, because I want to be able to take my MiSTer FPGA on the road with me. But the flagship does seem really interesting. Taki Udon stated he found the perfect OLED panel for it, so it's going to be really fun to see exactly what that configuration ends up looking like when it is done, because so far the MiSTer Pi has proven to be a very good thing. And honestly, if you take a look at the mainstream I/O here as well, these have been teased and previewed. They may have been changed by now, but it's going to be a very console-like experience. And what we've seen so far on the MiSTer Pi is so great as far as performance is concerned. I can easily recommend his clone DE10 Nano board the same way I would recommend the Terasic DE10 made by Terasic. All of the performance for me has been spot on. I've just used the MiSTer Pi the same way I would use my MiSTer FPGA, and I've had absolutely no problems, no glitches, no hitches with it at all. And that is great. You can be in the MiSTer FPGA ecosystem for under $200 today, playing stuff like Nintendo 64. And if you haven't watched those reviews yet, definitely check out my playlist. I've got 2 different comparison videos, as well as the full build guide showing you how the MiSTer Pi stacks up against the traditional DE10 Nano made by Terasic in Taiwan. But that's kind of the updates for Taki Udon and the R2 company right now. You have that mainstream console render, and those are definitely coming, but I don't know what's really going to launch next. It could be the handheld, it could be the mainstream, it could be the flagship. More than one could come out at any point in time. And I know there will be new batches of the MiSTer Pi coming shortly as well, so if you didn't get in on that first round, part 1 or part 2 in your ordering, I'm sure you'll get another opportunity soon. But leave me a comment down below and tell me, were you able to successfully buy one? And if so, have you been enjoying it so far? But for me personally, I'm just excited that the MiSTer FPGA ecosystem is growing, and I'm curious to hear from you guys in the comments which one you're most excited about next, the handheld, the mainstream, or the flagship. But definitely, if you haven't picked up a MiSTer Pi yet, you don't have a MiSTer FPGA, it's great hardware and definitely something you should consider moving forward. But next time Taki Udon updates us all, I'll do a video, but short of that, we're done. Go play some MiSTer FPGA and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.